Welcome to After the Letter, our companion conversation following this week's reading of the Screwtape letters by C.S. Lewis. One of us has spent time preparing and narrating the letter, while the other is hearing it with fresh ears. Together we reflect on what surprised us, what challenged us, and what these letters might still have to say to us today. This week, Lewis introduces what Screwtape calls the law of undulation, the idea that human life naturally moves through peaks and troughs. Our enthusiasm changes, our relationships change, our motivation changes. Even our sense of faith or purpose can change. So perhaps the question at the heart of Letter VIII is, what happens when the feeling that once carried us simply isn't there anymore?
Screwtape describes human beings as constantly moving between periods of energy and dullness, enthusiasm and flatness.
Wormwood's patient has seemed to have moved away from God or religion, I don't know. And you'd think that Screwtape would be pleased about this, but what I heard was, okay, all by itself it doesn't mean anything. This is something that happens. Coming and going and the toing and the froing and the up and down. And the surprise on my part moved into actual comprehension and recognition of, yeah, that's completely right. I was kind of relieved to hear that. This doesn't just apply to spirituality and faith. It's about most things in life. Most things have an ebb and a flow.
Yeah, that really stood out to me as well, the idea of fluctuation. It's probably best not to automatically interpret a low point as evidence that something has gone wrong, because sometimes that might just simply be part of human experience.
I agree.
So I guess that ties in with what you were saying.
I suppose the difficult thing is when something isn't attracting us or enthusing us or whatever it is, and that feeling seems to be absent. Yeah, the difficult thing is does that mean that it's over? That phrase, the honeymoon period's over. This is now what it is. It's grind.
Yeah.
Whether it's work or whether it was a creative endeavour or whatever it was.
Well, it could be just about anything. The undulation seems to be built into existence.
Why might the troughs matter?
Well, I guess the troughs will matter because they give you perspective on what it is that you're actually doing. Perhaps that's where the trough comes from, when you start looking at the thing that you've got in front of you and you see it stretching out in front of you. And unless you have experience of actually getting to the end of a thing and feeling the satisfaction of having completed it all, then it can seem like a daunting task. It can seem like you're going uphill all the time. And that's true. Anything worth doing takes some effort. But that's how it is. Life is like that. You have to put effort in order to get results. If you don't put effort in, then you could end up just feeling rubbish anyway and achieving nothing.
I'm interested in your example of there being some end goal. It's easy to do things and keep going or believing or trying when you're getting something back, but it doesn't necessarily have to be towards an end goal. In the context of faith, I suppose, it's about the intention. When you burn everything else away and everything looks like it's uphill, it comes down to what really matters to you. And if you can kind of identify that. And so maybe that's what the trough is about. Trough actually starts to help us to see what sort of we're actually committed to, what our commitment's built on. The other side of that is if it doesn't feel natural and you're not enjoying something, then why would you carry on doing it? Wormwood presumes that that's the battle won because the enthusiasm's gone, whereas Screwtape's saying, no, it's not as simple as that because people go back and forth. Things change. And actually, in that absence of joy or ease or whatever it is, where we might be tempting a human being, that's actually the time that they dig deeper to see what they're really made of. So I wonder whether the question's really about, do I only carry on with something if I'm getting something back emotionally?
Given that we live in a culture of instant reward, abandoning things quickly when they cease to be fulfilling, or constant searching for novelty, do you think that this letter feels particularly relevant for today's audience?
I do. But what it feels like right now is that people are searching for newness a lot of the time, stimulation. I've seen a lot of people abandon things quite quickly because they're not getting that instant reward, that buzz.
I think that's something we're all guilty of.
Yeah. I think it's a very difficult thing to explain to someone who is earlier in their life or is just coming up against challenges for the first time, that dip isn't a failure. But when I was that age, I think I felt exactly the same. I kind of thought, is this it? And if this is it, I don't want it, or I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to do something different. What's the difference, or is there a difference between feeling committed and choosing to remain committed?
One leads to results and the other one does not. You can have good intentions all you want, but until you put them into action, it's of no consequence, really. And that's a hard thing to understand when you're 17 and full of hormones, as I was. Learning anything in a climate of Cold War hysteria about nuclear Armageddon seemed pointless. And I realise now that we were misled just as much about that as people are being misled now. Fear, I used the fear out there to justify my own lack of action. I wish that I'd just gotten on with it.
Yeah, how do you keep the faith when there's little reassurance? Also, this idea of if a promise is made, then how compelled are we to keep the promise if we're not feeling that excited about it anymore? How do we carry on supporting somebody near or even not so near to us when it becomes inconvenient? And that's a big one for me right now, because in my life there are people who could benefit from my assistance and I'm weighing up the inconvenience.
You're only human for doing so. When one is feeling tired, it's harder to make those kinds of decisions. When one is feeling refreshed, then it's easier to be optimistic about making a decision like that. You have to make decisions from a place of wellness and restedness.
Coming back to the faith aspect of the letters, the descriptions of human beings are amphibians, part animal and part divine, I suppose. What did you kind of make about that side of things in terms of if faith isn't vivid, or is belief something different when there isn't an emotional reassurance about what's going on? And when some people...
Well, I don't know about belief, but faith is, because a belief can be anything, but faith you carry on even when there's no evidence to support you doing so.
That's what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah.
I think it's being talked about in this letter. So what are your thoughts on that, of how easy it is to do that?
It's really hard. It's really hard to do that, to carry on doing something when there is nothing supporting you doing so.
So does that mean that doubt, or there's a bit of a dry patch there? Does that mean that the faith's gone?
No, because your faith makes you carry on anyway. It could be anything. It could be this podcast. You're not getting anybody coming to listen. You're getting no feedback from anybody you know. And I'm using you, but I'm actually meaning me and you. We're doing this work. Hardly anybody is listening. But faith allows us to understand that at some point somebody will listen. And maybe it's just the right thing at the right time. We don't know. But we're doing it for the right reasons. It doesn't matter if it's taking a lot of effort on our part to do this thing. It's a good thing to do. Faith is a thing that carries on regardless, despite how you're feeling. Like putting one foot in front of another.
Yeah, agreed.
So what would you take from this letter into the coming week?
Paying more attention when I'm about to give up on something just because the excitement has passed. I do find myself in that situation quite a lot. I'll be really enthused about our project or whatever, and then I run out of steam, and then I find it very difficult to pick the thing back up again, and then it sits there like an unfinished workshop project. You know, imagine a shed, people.
Yes, imagine a very cluttered shed, folks.
So next time I might be a bit more
energetic.
Woo! Well, it's all right. Nobody's listening.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for another After the Letter conversation. If you haven't yet listened to Letter VIII itself, you'll find it in our main playlist. We'll continue next Sunday with Letter IX, followed by another conversation later in the week. Until then, we'd love to hear what you think. And the question we'd like to leave you with this week is, what helps you continue with something worthwhile when the initial enthusiasm has disappeared? Thanks for listening.